Hello friends and welcome to today's video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at two separate art pieces that I made over the last 2 weeks and just kind of diving into the thought behind them and how they came to be. Both artworks are going to be Pokemon focused because I both love Pokemon and so does my boyfriend, but also you guys seem kind of interested in Pokemon and seem to like those videos, so I figured I could do another piece of art or two with that in mind. But talking is boring, so let's go ahead and get right into the art. So to begin with, I just pulled out the palette and then I wrote which Pokemon I wanted each color of this palette to be. Now there are 6 colors on the color palette that I chose, so that means that there are going to be 6 Pokemon, starting off with this Teddiursa. Now when I was drawing him, there were a lot of really cute references online of him kind of like hugging towards the camera. So I really wanted to make this more of a 3D look, so I put in a lot of work to make it look like he was really reaching towards the camera per se, and that he is just trying to give a big ol' hug to the viewer. It did take me a little while to figure out exactly how the claw and paws should look, but I think in the end it's really cute. Now I'm moving on to an Eevee, because of course I want to include Eevee as the yellow color. Next is Sprigatito. He will be the light green color on the palette. I think that this Sprigatito is one of the cuter Pokemon in this drawing that I make. I really like his paw and how he's kind of reaching forward. Next up is Axew. He'll be representing the darker green from the color palette. He is once again kind of reaching forward. Overall, I was trying to make it so that a lot of the Pokemon were doing that. Next is Jigglypuff. He'll be pink, and then Purloin represents the purple color. So to continue this piece, I decided that the best next step would be to take the color from the color palette that each Pokemon is representing and just put down a completely blank layer of that color to fill up the space. I decided that I want this to be lineless art, so that is also another reason why I'm doing this, so that I can immediately get rid of those lines that I drew, and then I'll just bring them back whenever I need to see the details as I go in with the other colors after this step. By doing this step, I also do get to see really clear silhouettes of each of the Pokemon and decide how I think they look, and overall I think that they look really good. I think anyone that is a long-term fan of Pokemon would likely be able to kind of recognize who each Pokemon is, and I think that is definitely a benefit and kind of what I was going for. I also really like how this flat color looks right now for this piece of art. I think that the Eevee is super duper cute and I really like his eyes. Once again, the Teddiursa just reaching towards the camera like that is very, very cute. And with the Sprigatito, I do really like Sprigatito, but I feel like his eyes are a little bit uncanny in this for some reason. Maybe I chose a slightly wrong shade of that pinkish red color. Jigglypuff is just Jigglypuff. I'm not a huge fan of Jigglypuff or their design, but I like them enough for this. Axew, on the other hand, I really like. I have drawn him twice now, I believe, and I just think he's such a fun, cute Pokemon. He reminds me a lot of King from the Owl House. Have you ever seen that show? There's another Pokemon, the one with like the bone hat head thing. I think he looks even more like King, but Axew, for whatever reason, really does remind me of him. This is the part where I kind of struggled to decide which style I want to leave this in, because I really think that the flat colors are a really cool look, but I decided just to start trying to do kind of like a painterly rendering style, and I started with the Jigglypuff. And I do end up deciding enough that I do like this style, so I decided to carry it through the whole piece. But honestly, I think I'm going to save a copy of both the fully rendered version and the flat colors because I just like them both quite a bit. I kind of wish I would have made this in the size of a desktop background so that I could use this as a background on my own computer, but that's okay. I think in the end, I could always print this off if I really wanted to and make this into a piece of wall art for my house. And I do really think that this style is pretty cool looking. I always love a painterly art style and I love making a painterly art style because sometimes you kind of just hit that flow state and every line you put down just starts to add to it, versus sometimes when you're like not in that flow state and it feels like you're just kind of scribbling. But I really like so far in this piece, as you can see, the Axew I think is just so nicely rendered. I think he looks really awesome. The Purloin is probably my least favorite. I think I just struggled to render them and probably should have gone a little bit darker on the shadows. And the Sprigatito I also love. Very, very cute. I mean, it's just a green cat, so what's not to love? Now, looking at this piece, this is a pretty simple looking drawing. Pokemon notoriously are not that hard to draw because they're pretty simple shapes and they're kind of just animals that are very cartoonish. But for whatever reason, I took forever to get this done. This piece, which I thought I was going to be able to complete in like one evening and just whip up in like 2 or 3 hours, somehow ended up taking me nearly 9 hours, and I have no idea how, or like how to even explain how it got to be that long. And taking longer than I want to on art isn't necessarily a new problem that I have. I do tend to take kind of a while on my art pieces compared to other artists, it seems, because what I get done in like 6 to 8 hours, I see a lot of artists get done in like 2 to 4 hours. So there is probably something a little bit wrong with my process of creating art per se. And of course, there are just tons of videos out there that kind of give you tutorials on how to speed up your art process. And I've watched one or two of those. I don't tend to like watching tutorials, which again probably hurts me because then I don't get the good basic understanding of certain properties and principles that artists maybe should have. So that is kind of on me. But I have seen that you should kind of have a process that you stick to every single time you do art, and that should really help kind of speed things up because you'll just be following that process the whole way through. Apparently, also front loading your art and how much work you do at the beginning tends to be helpful as well. And when I say that, I guess I mean like putting all the planning in the beginning instead of kind of like rushing into the piece and planning the lighting and composition and all that while you're going. So maybe that's something I need to actually try to do a little bit more in my own art. But overall, I like this piece a lot, so it's not a huge deal that I did spend a lot of time on it. I will maybe just try to find a way to mitigate the amount of time I spend on my art in the future so that I can get more art out per week. But anyways, this is what the final piece looks like, and I really like it. I honestly have no complaints, and overall, I just am very happy with how it turned out. Now for this next piece, instead of taking one color palette to draw multiple Pokemon, I decided to draw one Pokemon using one color palette. And here is that color palette if you're interested in seeing all the individual colors. Now with that last drawing, I kind of regretted not making it the right size so that I could use it as a background on my computer. So to remedy that, I decided to make this drawing something that I could use as a background for my phone. Additionally, by the time that this video is out, I will make sure to post this to Pinterest and then link it in my description so that if anyone watching would like to use this as a background for their own phone, they can go ahead and download it right from Pinterest and use it as well. Now at this point in the drawing, I'm not quite sure if a viewer can tell what's actually going on, but my goal is to make it look like this Bulbasaur is sleeping in the forest and there's light coming through the leaves over top of him. I have all sorts of nature brushes that I always struggle to try and find a use for, so you'll see I try to use them here again, including with those flowers in the background. Ultimately, I end up settling for just one of the brushes that I have, which makes bushes pretty easily, and I use that to both put in the bright spots from the light coming in through the leaves above this guy, and I use it to make the bushes and trees behind him as well. I think one of my biggest problems with this piece was that I kept overcomplicating exactly what I was trying to do. So clearly I'm trying to make it look like he's laying on grass and there's like trees behind him and then above him as well. But I kept trying to make use of those brushes and they just didn't match the style I was going for. I also was trying to make sure that I got in every single color from the palette. So getting that purple and that yellow was a little bit hard, but I feel like I was able to kind of make it work out. As you can see, I did try to draw some trees behind the Bulbasaur to once again make it look like he was in a forest. I like how they look, but I don't know if they quite match what I'm going for. I'm back and forth on whether or not I should keep these in, but in the end, I do kind of decide that I've overcomplicated what's going on, and I kind of have a visibility problem where I can't even see the Bulbasaur that well. So ultimately, this is what I end on. And I think I'm pretty happy with this piece as well. At first, when I finally finished it, I wasn't really that into it because I think I had just stared at it for too long and there's a lot of blobs going on with those brushes I was using. But ultimately, I do think it's really cute and makes a really cool phone background. But this is where I'm ending the video for today. Please do consider liking and subscribing if you did enjoy this video because that tells me that you guys would maybe want to see more Pokemon art. Additionally, do not expect me next week on Friday just because I am switching to a bi-weekly posting schedule so that I both don't burn myself out and then I can also put a lot more time and effort into each individual project that I am making for this channel and hopefully put a little bit more time into the editing as well. But anyways, I do hope to see you in my next video. Thank you so much for making it to this point and bye-bye!